you're a fellow geek like me. You love technology. You love to mix that new school with the old school. Give me an example of some ideas that you've had to mitigate risk in other companies.
Drones.
Who doesn't like drones?
Yeah.
Hi everyone, this is Adam Warren with the Santoni Spotlight. I'm the sales manager over at Santoni Background Screening. With me, I'm with Ryan Schonfeld. He is the owner, CEO, president of RAS Consulting and Investigations. Thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me.
So they flew me in from Colorado. I'm guessing it's because Colorado was kind of the leading state when it came to cannabis and making it legal on state levels. Ryan has kind of a stronghold on the security portion with big cannabis companies. Besides cannabis companies, what kind of is an ideal customer for you?
Sure. So we got our start in the entertainment industry. So we're here in LA. That's kind of a natural fit for us. And then from the entertainment industry, we started working with tech and a lot of startups. And about a year and a half ago, we expanded into the cannabis space. And it's been pretty exciting to be in this new emerging industry, working with clients all over the country specific to cannabis.
Tell me a little bit about your background and how RAS became RAS and how you got involved in the cannabis security.
How we ended in cannabis, okay. So I grew up having a passion for law enforcement. Straight out of college, I went to the police academy, became a police officer, got into investigations, ultimately pursued my master's in IT because I was fascinated by cybercrime and saw how far behind technology the law always was. Started doing some federal consulting, and in the end we ended up relocating from the East Coast to the West Coast, which moved me into the private sector. Being in LA, I went to work for a major studio doing investigations and ultimately running global security technology.
Okay.
One of the frustrations I had in a major Fortune company was finding service providers who didn't specialize in one facet of security. So there were technology experts, there were operational experts, but there weren't good companies that did both and not only helped implement the right technologies, but did it in a way that was beneficial to your overall operation and stayed on to support that. Also, I found in general that the security industry was a bit behind the times, still very analog in a digital age. Being a tech-forward person, I was very frustrated by that, so I started a company that was tech-forward, and also that focused on a company's culture. It's very traditional in the security space that we've got this box that's called security, and you go to a company and you tell them you've got to fit in this box. And that doesn't work anymore, right? Office spaces are open, they're creative, collaborative work environments without walls. How do you secure an office that doesn't have walls?
Right.
And so our approach to security has been and will continue to be culture and technology forward. And rather than trying to jam companies into a box, we kind of build the box around the company. And so that's a high-level overview of why and how we got here specifically. Was, as a police officer, if you had asked me if I'd be working in the cannabis industry, I probably would have said you're crazy. But actually, since leaving law enforcement, and even a little bit in law enforcement, I've learned a lot about the cannabis space, the medical properties of cannabis specifically. And now that, states are legalizing cannabis, I think it's important that, number one, it's an industry that has risk, and so they need security, and so there's no reason that we should be helping them achieve the level of securities that are appropriate to their risk. And number two, I think it's important to, now that it's legal in these jurisdictions, to begin destigmatizing this historical negativity around cannabis. It has a lot of great medical properties, and the bottom line is it's legal here. So we've worked with law enforcement extensively and doing training programs on helping current law enforcement remove the stigma of cannabis and bringing them into client environments like MedMen so that they can see that this is a real legitimate business that operates above board. And it's really been an effective program.
Great. So curious, what kind of cost is associated with one of your projects? And you can give examples of something that you already said, repurposing equipment, but give me a low level and like a high level on
It's hard to give numbers specifically because it's so different in different jurisdictions, right? So like in the state of California, one of the biggest cost factors for security is the amount of time that you have to hold video. And one of the areas where people mess up a lot when they don't have the proper planning around their security is the regulations have words, sometimes it's one word sprinkled into this 30, 40, 50 page document that can, in the case of the city of LA, triple the cost of your security, or in California. So 90 days video retention in California, and that one word is the word continuous, right? So in a traditional security environment, you may record your video on motion. So your camera is mounted on the wall, there's no activity, nothing's recorded. As soon as something happens, it starts recording. Cannabis regulation here says not only do you have to keep your video for 3 months, but you have to do that on a continuous basis at this minimum resolution. So the server alone for a lot of these places, just to store that video, can be $30,000, $60,000, which blows a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, I could understand that. Definitely, I mean, just a few sentences for me, and I can understand why it's extremely important to hire a company that knows all these regulations. And
well, we think so, but we're biased, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
So Ryan, you mentioned that you've been able to repurpose some of the equipment and some of the protocols that customers have already had and bring them up to date. Can you give us an example of one of those success stories?
Sure. So here in LA, which is one of the largest, or at least soon to be largest cannabis markets in the country, there are a significant number of operators who have been operating under the medical cannabis regulations for a number of years. Those people had priority application to apply under the new regulations to operate, but they had to meet the new regs. And almost all of them, from at least what we saw, did not meet the current regs, even though they've been operational for years under the old requirements. It was extraordinarily expensive for many of these operators to take their existing businesses and make them compliant under the new stringent requirements. And so we had one in particular where, because of the layout of their facility, they had an immense number of cameras to meet the requirements. And so we were actually able to design a system that was a hybrid of new and their existing equipment that met the regs, and saved them over $50,000 in deployment costs by leveraging the equipment that we could and only buying stuff where we absolutely had to.
It reminds me of a house, and old houses being grandfathered in with electric and water code or whatever, and you're able to actually take the old wire and take the old pipes and bring that house up to code without having to gut the house.
In some cases. Yeah. Some people are just so far off that it's difficult to work with.
So you said some people are really far off. What is the most common, or what's the craziest mistake that you see this emerging market and all these new business owners making?
I think, because we don't actually sell any of the technology, right? We come in and we consult on what they should do. We help them source the materials with partners and companies that we do a lot of work with. And a lot of people are inclined to go out and hire the alarm company or hire a company directly that does the install, who doesn't have their best interest in mind because they're looking to sell a system.
Right.
So because we don't actually sell a product to them, there's no incentive for us to oversell or increase the camera count. There's no financial incentive or anything. It makes our job harder, actually. So number one of the mistakes I think I see is people going to the installers directly and not using somebody like us who A, can design the system for them, but B, the cost savings they get by working with us generally more than covers our cost, and they still have a net savings in the end, in most cases.
Yeah, it makes sense. Why go out and purchase something yourself because they're going to upsell you, and you're not getting that wholesale value. You're getting the wholesale value, and you're giving them a solid plan at the same time.
Well, and most of those companies, and this is not a fault to them, it's not their job to understand the regs. We have a very deep understanding of the security requirements specific to the cannabis industry. And the average security installer does not, because they don't really have a need to. And so we've had several clients who have spent thousands of dollars installing security that was totally non-compliant. And it wasn't stuff that we were able to repurpose. And so they essentially, maybe some of them resold it on eBay or were able to return pieces of it. But ultimately, doing the work too early before you know what's going on, or in a jurisdiction before the regulations are final, has cost a lot of people a lot of money.
So you say you work with companies all over the country. Is there I know that the regulatory things with cannabis specifically can be very detailed. Do you have like a full team, or do you see states differ on what they require from you guys, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we do have a full team of people in-house. We also have a network of contractors that we use in some other states just to minimize travel costs for clients. What we do have in-house is a compliance analyst who stays on top of the regulatory requirements in each jurisdiction, so that we can make sure, as we're planning the security, that it's not only best practice for the client, but that it's also compliant with the regs.
Great. What's like a great success story? What's something that RIS has implemented at a customer that's given some really good results and saved money or security?
So we regularly save the clients a lot of money. Although we don't have any type of financial arrangement with any of the manufacturers or installers of the products, we do have really strong relationships with them. And what that means is that we're able to help negotiate the pricing from the manufacturer all the way through the supply chain to the end user. So our clients are regularly saving 24 to 56% of what they would spend on security had they just gone out and tried to implement it on their own.
So when you present a security plan, do you have to present it to the state or to the city that you're inputting it in, as well as to the client? And how do those plans change as time goes?
So it's different by jurisdiction and also by client. So sometimes we'll walk into a client who's already started or tried to implement security on their own, and they got stuck, or they realized what they were doing didn't meet the requirements. And so in that case, we're trying to take as much of what they already did and repurpose it to make it compliant. We have some clients who are very limited on budget, and so we have to be conscious of the funds and making sure that we're using it as wisely as possible. And some people want to build state-of-the-art facilities, and they say we want the best of everything, we want to have the best possible security program. So we get to have a lot of fun with those clients and use fun new emerging technologies and some of the things we would implement in, say, a tech company that you wouldn't traditionally see in a dispensary or a cannabis business.
Nice. So one of your largest customers, MedMen, I've seen the inside of some of their dispensaries, and aesthetically it's beautiful, but I've seen some of the regulatory and some of the security that they implement. How do you keep them secure and provide the best equipment, but have the stores and the different dispensaries look amazing inside?
Sure. So without getting into their secret sauce, there's a fine line between systems, people, and policies and procedures that, if created and implemented correctly, create an overall security program that's safe. So just building strong walls by itself does not give you a security program. Just having lots of cameras is not a security program. It's how you install them, where you install them, and how functionally you use them that creates a program. And so that's what we've been able to do here at MedMen, is find a good blend of those different pieces to make sure that they have a state-of-the-art security program that is scalable nationwide and beyond. Great.
So tons of security threats. Obviously, these companies deal with a large volume of cash. We see those outside risks. What kind of do you see a lot of internal risks with employees and employee theft? I mean, every company down to grocery stores deals with that. Is that something that you guys help address as well?
Yeah, it's actually a huge issue. It's not talked about much yet in the cannabis space, but it's a big issue. Like any company, as you said, there's internal theft and loss. The insider threat from a security perspective is always something that we're considering. The difference in the cannabis space compared to a retail environment is if some product walks out the door, it's not a matter of saying, okay, we lost a $20 pair of jeans. It's we now have to report this loss to a regulatory body, which could significantly impact your ability to operate. It could result in fines, closures, and beyond. So good hiring practices, background checks, knowing who you're putting in your stores, that they're truly trusted, having a loss prevention program. Loss prevention is so traditional in retail, yet somehow in the cannabis space it seems to be forgotten. But I think it really starts with a good onboarding and offboarding process, and the onboarding has to include a background check.
Great. It's good to hear that such a new industry like cannabis is concentrating on background checks. I mean, obviously that's what we do, and that's why we partner so much.
An effective security or camera system, like with good software, can save you 75+% of your time in reviewing video. And like in a traditional system, you have to just watch all the way through, versus like, if I know that your phone was stolen off the table there, and there's a camera here, and good piece of software, I should be able to draw a box around right here, and it'll just give me any movement from that box. So rather than watching 24 hours of tape, I may watch a minute.
So Ryan, we touched a lot on stores being aesthetically pleasing. It's kind of, I'm sure it can be a nerve-wracking experience for a customer to come into a shop for the first time. You go into any old school bank and you're going to see an old guy sitting in a chair with a gun. It's not very warmly inviting. What's your take on armed guards and security in that matter?
Sure. So as far as environment goes, we take the same approach at cannabis as we do in tech and any other business. There are ways to design security that are aesthetically pleasing, that meet your brand and your culture, and you don't have to compromise what your brand is to meet the regulatory guidelines or to be safe. When talking about armed guards specifically, I personally think they're way overutilized in retail. Think about what you're protecting. Is it replaceable? In most cases, yes, the product, and then you have money. You can reduce the amount of money you have if you have good cash handling procedures. If you're not keeping large volumes of cash on site, then your risk is lowered. And so then look at the risk that's created by having an armed guard in the store, right? If somebody comes into the store armed, you've got somebody with a gun, and all of a sudden there's a gun battle in a retail store. Most likely an innocent person is going to get hit. So again, what are you protecting, and is it really worth it? And in some cases the answer may be yes, but we definitely challenge our clients to think through that and say which risk is greater and which way do we want to go. The other piece of it is, if you're designing a beautiful store that's supposed to be warm and inviting, then do you really want that commando-looking person at the door with the big weapons? Or do you want, if you're insisting on having armed security, maybe you spend a little extra money and get somebody who can conceal carry. So you get the benefit of having the gun there in the event that you really need it. They'll probably have more training if they have a concealed carry permit, at least in California. And you don't necessarily hurt the brand or the inviting nature of your facility.
So Ryan, clearly you're a fellow geek like me. You love technology. You love to mix that new school with the old school. Give me an example of some ideas that you've had to mitigate risk in other companies.
Drones.
Who doesn't like drones?
Yeah. So this year, RAS launched our drone division. We are doing drone detection and mitigation strategies for companies. It includes most of our companies we're talking to now are parks, large venues, stadiums, and it has to do with detecting the threat, and then once you detect it, how you actually action it, and what you do with the drone, what you do with the people. So there's a lot of operational decisions that have to happen once a drone enters your airspace. You may see, some different strategies around it. So rather than people who historically may have been dedicated to looking for drones with binoculars, we'll be able to detect them, intercept them, send them back, land them in specific areas. There are still some challenges with the current federal laws and the FAA. So there's a lot of lobbying going on now around catching the laws up to technology yet again.
Yeah. Well, by the time they're done, it'll be 6 years and technology will change again.
Sure. But there are a lot of effective tools out there, technology tools that you can use now, that some of which can even detect the drone before it leaves the ground,
Wow.
the minute the controller's turned on. So we're working with companies. That's our newest offering. It's super geeky, but it's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Sweet. So part of the Santoni Spotlight is not just focused on business. There's, behind every business and owner, there's a human too. What do you do when you're not protecting all these companies from threats?
In my 24/7 security business.
Great answer.
I've got a great family, young kids, so I like to spend a lot of my free time with the family. I'm a big fan of traveling.
Okay.
So as much as I can travel, and the nice thing about 2018 is I can do a lot of what I do from anywhere.
Technology.
It's a wonderful thing.
That's awesome.
Except when it's not.
Yeah. Well, it's really good meeting you, man. We've talked on the phone many times, but I'm glad we finally got to meet in person, and I really appreciate you having us down and letting us spotlight you in the Santoni Spotlight.
Likewise, thanks for coming.
Cool, man.